welcome to the Aftershow, and I'm delighted to be joined again by Dave Stedman. Hi Dave, thanks for joining me.
That's a pleasure, good to be here.
And your wife has been a regular on the Aftershow. Is your first performance?
I think this is my second. I think I may have been on one before, but to be honest, I've done so many of these different kind of platforms, services, conversations, pre-records, live. I lose track of where I've been.
It's all blurring into one. Yeah, fair enough. So we're going to discuss the sermon from today. I've written a few points, and if anyone wants to put a comment on YouTube, please do. Any questions for Dave? Any thoughts? I particularly wanted to pick up on Mary Magdalene. I think there's something really powerful about her character. And I've written what you said, Dave, about she's transformed from mourner to missionary. And I think that's very powerful. I don't know if you want to expand on that or anything else about her transformation.
Well, I have to hold my hands up and say that particular phrase I lifted from one of the commentaries because I also like it, and it kind of captures that movement. But I suppose, I mean, there are two aspects, aren't there? One is that here was this woman who clearly had an eventful past. We don't know all the details. We can't say for certain what that would have involved, but 7 demons is going to lead to some chaos in your life. So here was a woman, perhaps a woman who didn't have the greatest reputation, but who was someone that Jesus identified and invested in. We can say that reasonably confidently from everything else that we do know and other literature. So Jesus saw something in her from an early stage, and what took place on that Easter morning was in a sense part of his plan and purpose for her. It wasn't an accident that the way that worked out. So so I think Jesus obviously saw her as being someone who could be trusted, and that would take that message and take it seriously.
Why do you think he chose her above, I don't know, a very well-positioned man or someone with more standing in society?
Well, why do I think he chose her? I think they probably did have a particular bond and friendship, and I think that does perhaps inform, the type of relationships that we have, and it's definitely a model for relationship between men and women, for friendship between men and women. So I think he chose her because there was this pre-existing trust and relationship. But I think also there is that prophetic element that clearly, Jesus had been crucified because he challenged the status quo, because he was a threat to the authorities, to the Romans and to the religious authorities. And here was someone who was almost as far outside all of the power play as you could get, and still be part of the covenant community. And that at some level that was part of his reason for choosing her, because it was indicative of the whole tenor of the ministry that he came to exercise.
Yeah. And I think you said about how the resurrection is personal, and you can see that in the story of Mary, what it meant to her because of her deeply personal relationship with Jesus. And I wonder if that's a model for our relationship with Jesus. It's personal. It's not just something we read about in the Gospels or hear about in other people's lives. It's this is my God. This is my teacher. She says my teacher, and we are supposed to say to Jesus, my God, my teacher, not someone else's. And I wonder if that personal relationship is just that's key that Mary had.
Yeah, absolutely. And where Jesus teaches his disciples to pray, "Our Father." He's going to my Father and your Father, and certainly that movement from woman to Mary, from sir to my teacher, is an incredibly important part of that story, and a reminder to us that we can, we have a tendency to be a bit academic and to reduce things to understand, or to try and understand, but that actually this is at heart about a human relationship and a human response to an individual Jesus who put on flesh and came to find us and wants to take us home and knows us, because that name is that was the moment, that was the key moment, in a sense, in that entire passage when Jesus says Mary. Her eyes are opened and she turns and hugs him. So that deep. So Jesus relates to us as an individual. He knows us. He calls us by name, and we cling fast to him because he's our Jesus, our friend. He's my brother.
Yes. That's true. There's that powerful moment of personal revelation for Mary. Although she's already a follower of Christ, he calls her by name, and there's that moment of personal revelation for her. But you also said that the resurrection is not just personal; it's accessible for everyone. Maybe the character of Mary makes it a lot more accessible for those that don't feel worthy. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree. If Jesus had chosen someone who was in some high and lofty position, that would not necessarily relate to the majority of people who would ever be hearing or reading that story. So the choice of Mary Magdalene, I think, is she isn't every man. She isn't archetypal in that sense, but in at some level she is meant to draw in you, draw in me, draw in us with all of our faults and frailties and history and questions, and make us appreciate that it really, Jesus knows us, but he still calls us by name because he loves us ultimately.
Yeah, very much so. And then, I don't think we need to. I'm intrigued, and I think the Bible gives us very little information about this, and I don't think we need to know her past. We know it's questionable. We know it's colourful. 7 demons. She must have been, and perhaps the Bible's quite quiet on that for a reason. That's not the main point. We don't need to know the details of people's past. The fact is that it was difficult and colourful, and Christ set her free. The last point I have, Dave, is how resurrection transforms our own view of death, especially with the COVID season that we've been in. I don't know if you want to expand on that, but how it transforms our view of
death. I'm always conscious in that kind of conversation that there's a risk that in embracing the reality of the resurrection and the hope that gives us, that we can diminish the reality of death. Death is an enemy. Death is part of human existence because of the fall, and would not otherwise have happened. And therefore, it's not something that we can or should diminish. And when we have lost loved ones, and when we ourselves face the end of our lives, I read sometimes about some of the great saints and the wonderful things they said. I hope I will have that. I hope I'll have that faith at that time. But it is nevertheless deeply sad. You're going to be saying goodbye to everything that you've ever known and experienced, the people that you love. It's real and it's painful, and that's why Mary was weeping, because Jesus had gone. But he has risen from the dead, and he promises that he goes ahead of us to prepare a place for us with his Father and our Father. And therefore there is hope. And there's a quote by a former Bishop of Durham who said, God is as he is in Jesus Christ. God is as he is in Jesus Christ. Therefore, there is hope. And because there's hope, doesn't mean to say that there isn't also pain. I heard another quote, I can't remember who it was from, but this was just this week, something along the lines that even at the best of times, life is still full of sadnesses. And so we shouldn't diminish the reality of death, but death can be transformed. And I love that poem that I read from Edwin Muir, and the way in which the cross becomes a tree and corner and Judas goes backwards, and actually it's all undone. That's the wonder, and I think that's the scope and the scale of the resurrection. That again, sometimes we even in our attempts to honour it, we reduce it to being just in a moment. But actually, that moment reaches backwards and reaches forwards, and there's hope for all humanity, past, present, and future, because of it. And, when I was preparing, I was thinking, how do you try and articulate some of these things? And sometimes you just can't, but we try.
I was going to ask you one final question, and it might be a tricky one to answer. I probably try and answer it myself. How is the resurrection, or how does the resurrection inform your life every day? How do you live your life differently or view life differently because of the resurrection?
I mean, I've been a Christian a long time now, so I've lived with that hope and that faith for best part of 35 years. But there was a time when I didn't have that, and I genuinely was lost and without hope in the world. Basically, thought, make the best of it, enjoy yourself, make a pile, retire early, that kind of thing. So it definitely informs my life. It informs my decisions and choices, but it also has brought me and continues to bring me a sense of comfort and peace, that there's continuity in relationship with people who I have been separated from by death for decades, and that actually I guess I do absolutely subscribe to an evangelical kind of understanding of faith and salvation, but it also gives me hope that actually maybe God's grace is far bigger than that, as well. So it gives me hope for what has not yet happened as well.
Yeah, and I've shared before that I identify with Mary Magdalene a bit. I wouldn't say I have a particularly exciting and colourful past, and I'm not sure it'd be between 70, maybe 10. I think that, Jesus pitched up in my life unexpectedly and called me by name, and I wasn't a nobody, but I wasn't a somebody. I was just getting on with life, and I still struggle to comprehend why me. So I really do identify, and then I feel that evangelical urge to run and tell others because of what Christ has revealed to me and how he called me by name, and that personal relationship I have with him. I feel like I live now to just run and tell others, and that feels daunting, also exciting. So I would say that I do identify with that character of Mary Magdalene, and that's probably how the resurrection informs my life. When you haven't been a Christian, you realise that you were dead. I wouldn't have considered myself dead, but I was dead in my sins, and I wasn't alive, and now I am alive in Christ, and I've seen my husband become alive in Christ, and it's different. It's very different. Life has hope. Life has a purpose. I think purpose and hope are the two. So that's brilliant. Thank you, Dave. That's a fascinating discussion. What we're going to do is we're going to watch. I found this testimony. It was in my emails, and it really reminds me of the modern day Mary Magdalene. It's about a man, a woman, so not quite. It's about someone who might have considered himself a nobody and had a colourful past, and it's someone local as well. In the video, you'll see some lovely footage of Whitstable. Well, I won't say the place, see if you can spot them. But I and this person was again dead in their sins, and Christ raised them to life. So we're going to watch that now. If I can share my screen.
There was always something about danger, even from an early age. And the adrenaline I felt knowing I could get caught, that was really addictive. The 80s came along, the world started thinking it was pretty much invincible. And the more advanced we got, the more we wanted. Pretty soon life became about one thing, and one thing only: success. But as more and more enjoyed the freedom that the money brought them, 1 million kids lived in prisons right under their noses, and I was one of them. From an early age, I was taken into care. I tried my best to hide, and I tried to escape it, but every day was about waiting for the abuse to start. She wanted me to believe I was rubbish. Pretty soon I was believing her. She told me that the bin men were going to come and collect me. And sometimes I didn't even deserve to sleep in my bed. She made me believe that everything was my fault, and I was just a bad kid. I told lies and no one believed me, she said. There's no point in being afraid of the abuse anymore, because it was going to happen anyway. So I'd just stay in the corner and hold my breath, because then she wouldn't be able to see me. Well, that's what I thought anyway. Even as a young boy, there was always something about danger, and something about getting my own back on a grown-up world that I couldn't really trust. That really attracted me. I was getting one over on them, and do you know what? That felt really good. Even when later adopted, I struggled to become a part of that family. I was doing my own thing now. The other kids started respecting me and looking up to me, and I thought I was the man. But really, I was the same lost little boy. But by now, this was fast becoming the only life I knew. As the years rolled on, I just fell deeper and deeper into the new life I've built. Prison was always like a second home. began as low-level cannabis dealing. It soon became more and more serious. I was pretty good at sniffing out the opportunities as they came along. So pretty soon I was moving up to bigger things. Bigger deals, harder drugs, taking more risks. I was pretty good at it. I went where the opportunity took me. Cape Town, Istanbul, New York. Where there's money to be had. But it seemed good. So I thought. But it didn't stay that way. It seemed like every time I built myself a new world, I just wanted to escape from it again. Only this time, I was coming to the end of the road. By now, I was homeless, and I was becoming weak and desperate. This was my life, and I'd had enough of it. But I was running out of ideas. There was nowhere else left to run. So I went back to the one place that was familiar, the one place that felt safe. Prison. Prison didn't offer me the escape that I thought it would. My lifestyle and years of homelessness had left me pretty vulnerable. For the first time, I'd just become the weak one. And knowing that put me into a really dark place. I decided that I was going to take my own life. I was going to show the world how angry I was. Because I was sick of all of it. And that was when it happened. Before me, there were suddenly two figures. One was my adopted mother, and the other one, and even though I didn't know who it was, there was something telling me this was Jesus Christ. Then my adopted mother said to me, "Tony, don't you see you've been given everything?" I thought, what do you mean everything? I've got nothing. Look at my life. My life is a mess. I've lost everything. I couldn't believe I was hearing it. But then Jesus opened my eyes. He began to show me exactly what I'd been given. For the first time in my life, my eyes were opened, and I saw that I'd been given something that was really precious. I'd been given so much. I'd been loved. I saw all of it. I tried to shut the door on all of it. I was so angry with the world. And now I was trying to shut the door on life itself. But as I sat there, just being there in his presence, I'd never felt more alive. When I look back on that moment now, I just can't believe it happened. Because it just changed everything. my life has meaning, you know, and my life has purpose. To capture that moment where you are in the presence of God, I wish you could bottle that, because that is like nothing else you've ever experienced before. There's nothing greater. There is nothing greater. There is nothing the world can afford. It means more than the presence of God.
So powerful video, and I guess you can see. I was just thinking what Mary had been given and how much she was forgiven and released from. I wonder if that guy too. That the more that you're released from, and the more that you're forgiven, perhaps the more in debt you feel to Jesus. Perhaps. Don't know if you have any thoughts on that video, Dave.
Well, yeah, I mean, those who are forgiven much love much is the phrase that comes to mind. But we've all done all kinds of stuff for which we have needed and will need to be forgiven. Some of it more socially acceptable than others. But that story is, it's remarkable. And it's just wonderful that he's had that revelation and realization and come to find the reality of what it means to be unconditionally loved.
Yeah, amen. We've just got a question come in, Dave. I don't know if you, with your great knowledge of all the Marys.
Yeah, I don't think so is the answer, but I will check. But I'm pretty sure the answer to that is no.
Yeah. Thank you for your question, Alex. He also says, Easter was a time of celebration here at Larsh. Praise God for that. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Dave. I feel that's been a really powerful sermon and hopefully a useful discussion that will carry on at home. I'll let you go now and enjoy your Sunday lunch.
Thank you very much. Well, it's been great to be with you all, and thank you, Rachel, for leading us through and for your questions as well. Enjoyed that.
Great, no worries, and thanks all for joining us. Have a good week, and we'll see you next Sunday, if not before. Bye.